Why do crazy tech people on Twitter always say this? I'm not downloading iOS updates because a court case in Europe found that updates can slow down your phone to push you to upgrade your phone, and I'm happy with my hardware. And I use my Twitter account to respond, and my Twitter account is very entertaining. Please follow it now. That these are the demonetized of the tech world. But why do people keep blathering on and on and on about how they will never install the iOS update because it would slow down their phone? Well, let's take a look. So back in December 2017, some people with iOS 11.2 reported that their Geekbench scores is absolutely garbage compared to when new, because everyone knows that iPhones hit a certain Geekbench score when new, so they're surprised that Geekbench scores went down when previously they never will. In fact, Jeremy Rambo found that out, that iPhones just dip on 11.2. No matter which iPhone you have, you can have an iPhone 6S or you could have the 1-year-old iPhone 7. And a couple days later, actually, Apple admitted to kind of throttling iPhone performance, and their rationale was the battery was degrading, and so to avoid unexpected shutdowns, we would throttle your dang device. And that falls right into those boomers' suspicions that Apple wanted to urge them to buy a new phone by slowing down their hardware and destroying their performance and crapping out their battery life to get them to buy a new phone. And needless to say, that's not great optics. In fact, a couple lawsuits were filed, a couple of settlements were had. Apple had to add a button to allow people to turn on maximum performance with the acknowledgement that the battery would suddenly drop to 0 for no reason and your phone would automatically shut down. Now, Apple has been throttling your phones for years and want you to buy a new one every couple years, which is just not true. It just happened right now. And yeah, I do know that earlier iPhones have crappier hardware, so you would actually have to buy a new phone because it would stop supporting the current version of iOS, but not to this extent. But yeah, so there's this actual Reddit post, there's this comment I found on Reddit that alleges that, I'll have a link in the description below if you want to read the whole thing, that essentially theorizes that internally Apple engineers have a flaw with the iPhone 6s and 7 batteries, and that's why they have to throttle it a year on to kind of not let that battery accidentally kill your phone's battery life and just turn off your iPhone for no reason and let it continue to operate even though it might be slower because the battery inside was not greatly engineered. It was not perfect. It had a bit of a flaw. And so the entire Apple corporate got together, the engineering team, the marketing team, Apple Care Plus, they're like, hey, people might want to come in more to replace the batteries and to talk about their phones and yell at customer service because of their situation. So they kind of resorted to adding a control internally in iOS 11.2 to kind of throttle the device so the iPhone is still usable at least, even though it is way slower, and it's a huge concern for people with like 1-year-old iPhones that already have this issue. Like, you weren't supposed to have like a slow as heck iPhone with a crappy battery just 1 year after it launched. I think that's crazy, and I think this is what really set people off. 2 or 3 years, maybe it's fine, but 1 year? Like 1 year. Most people don't update their phones every year. So you meant to tell me that 1 year on, my iPhone is not going to work that way? And I think that rubbed people the wrong way. And I think this issue has been rectified in the new iPhone 10 or later. This is really just a 6S thing. And they tried to use this battery throttling thing as a way to kind of remedy this battery flaw. It's a really interesting Reddit comment to look into and kind of shines a bit of a light on why Apple chose this and why it isn't a big deal. You don't really see batteries in later iPhones do this. They don't randomly shut down. And yeah, I would say it makes sense. Personally, I have an iPhone 6, which is in the very similar body as the 6S, and I could attest, yeah, the battery does run out pretty quick, but also slapped a smart battery case in the second half of its life when it starts to not hold a charge as well. And yeah, it does short out. It does go from 35% and then all the way to 0%. And it is a big issue, and I actually had to have the battery replaced at the end of its life cycle, and on iOS 12 it seemed to work out fine. It seemed to not have that issue. But you have these boomers on Twitter. You have these boomers that absolutely refuse to update their iOS because, oh, my phone is like 30% slower. My battery is terrible in my phone. Maybe it's just your phone. Maybe batteries deplete. Maybe that's why Apple had to add that dumb notice at the top of the battery screen, because people won't shut the hell up about their iPhones suddenly turning off and their phones going slow because Apple just wanted to make sure that you still have a phone to use. Oh god. And we're officially out of the generation where people like, oh, I'm gonna have the 6S and it still shorts out on me. So I don't know why people keep perpetuating this, but it's not like that boomers are like at the forefront of understanding smartphone technology. But it just annoys the heck out of me because there's so much misinformation flying around that people think that, hey, guess what? Apple throttles your phones. If you would engineer your batteries better, maybe we don't need to have this conversation. Maybe we don't need to add a button in iOS that encourages these type of people. But I digress. The battery issue isn't really there anymore. If you're worried about your iPhone throttling, if you're on a newer 10s or an 11 Pro, these phones have bigger batteries. These phones have better engineered batteries. They're not an issue anymore. So don't. Even though you see settlements, and including one European settlement that's last week, don't kick up the fuss. That was the 6S or 7. Court cases take like 400 million years. The last court case was during the Mesolithic era. So I wouldn't put too much water that current iPhones have it, especially when literally one of the selling points of the 11 Pro is that it has a gigantic battery, and you see that every iPhone right now in their ads, it's long battery life, bigger battery, whatever. It's not an issue. Update your iOS. You get security updates, you get bug fixes. If you have something annoying on your iPhone and you want the software to be taken care of, do that. You also get new emojis, which is way more important than what I just said. But update your phones. You aren't getting the new features, and Apple is proactively trying to improve your battery and your performance as well. Even if you have an older phone and you haven't replaced your battery since ever. So update your phones. It's just so frustrating for me, who actually know this kind of stuff, to be constantly listening to people that are like, oh, iOS updates slow down your phone. I've had like a ton of people come up to me asking me if I should update because their friends kept telling them that iOS slows down their phone. No, it does not. It used to, but because it's either your phone being completely dead or you have a slightly slower phone, but you can still make phone calls with. So, yeah. Update your iOS. That's all. Bye.